I love cameras. You may not have guessed from the 3,000 or so videos that I've uploaded, but I enjoy cameras. I enjoy taking pictures, I enjoy making film, and there have been times when I've tried to escape from it and say, you know, I just want to experience life. Why do I always have to be the guy taking pictures? At school events, when my son was playing football in high school, I spent the entire time looking through the lens of a camera, trying to get that right picture, missing the whole moment. And it's a little bit different when you're not filming, when you're at an event and when you're filming like daily life. When I'm filming with my cameras, I'm not too picky about which cameras I've used really in the past. Anyway, I picked up this camera the other day, and it's a Panasonic G3. It's a Panasonic Lumix G3, and it's pretty damn sweet, and I just wanted to make a quick review on this thing. The buttons may be complicated to figure out. It takes a while to learn it. But that's the thing with these cameras. Some of them are simpler to use than others. But for the most part, if you want to get into professional photography, you have to spend a little bit of money and a little bit of time learning your camera. So this one has a, turn it on here. Here we go. Oh, you can see my other camera through that camera. That's the camera I've been using for all my videos. It's a Panasonic, it's also a Panasonic. It's a HDC SD10. It's a phenomenal camera, this thing is. I just love it. It's a tiny little camcorder. Well, you can see it through there. Very small, pocket size, and it takes extremely high def video if I want to. It's on the lowest setting right now. Anyway, enough about that camera. I just wanted to say somebody's going to look these up, and when I was looking up cameras, I had to go to YouTube and look up the Lumix, you know, to see what people were saying about it. So I figured I might as well contribute a little bit, you know. This is from a first-time photographer with the first time I've had a decent camera, which I believe they were DSLR, isn't that what the standard version is? I'm not a photographer, so I don't know all the terminology, but this is a mirrorless camera. Most of them have a mirror in there that reflects back up. This is a mirrorless, so the lens, the actual receiver is right there in front of the lens. And people have claimed that really the only benefit to it is that it's lighter. You don't have to fit that camera within the body, so this thing weighs nearly nothing. One of the coolest things about it is that you can pop the screen out and flip it around and pop it back in, and it's got a huge display screen on it, and tons of settings, all kinds of stuff. But you can also push the LCD and use the viewfinder, which does a phenomenal job. And I've learned a lot about photography over the last, few years, but I haven't really had the cameras to experiment with. I had a decent Sony that I used for a while, but this one is the first one that actually has all the where I can take a picture at night and actually make it come out. In fact, you look through the viewfinder, it seems like it's daytime sometimes when it's night. And I guess the reason why I'm really even talking about this camera is because I've taken so many, probably 30, 40,000 pictures in the last few years, because every time I get to 10,000, my camera starts over, my Sony. And I've started over like twice now, plus all the other cameras I've taken pictures with, not even to mention cell phones. If we're gonna take a picture, we want it to be a good picture. And years back, I went camping and I took my Minolta, my old Minolta 35mm, took some pictures of my friend and I camping. Those pictures are like primo. I love those things. Everything's in focus, just what needs to be in focus. I mean, you can manually adjust these things. They're perfect pictures. With the camera, generally everything just looks flat and out of balance. Even some of the better cheap cameras tend to make everything just kind of look like just splotched on, There's no depth to it. And when you get the right focal points, it's totally worth it. So if you're a person who's been thinking about getting a decent camera and you like to take pictures, it's worth it. It's totally worth it if you can afford it. I couldn't, so I had to trade for it. And that's why I never had one before. I've figured out all the different programming settings, but the one thing I was learning about RAW files, which are like, you know, when you're taking a RAW file with this 16 megapixel, whatever, you'll get 16 megapixels worth of picture in your RAW picture. If you take JPEG pictures from your camera, which is the standard that everybody uses, say you have a 16 megapixel camera, you're only going to maybe get 4 or 5 pixels megapixels out of that. You lose a significant amount. It's just like when you record an MP3 and you lose from the lossless quality of audio. It takes out redundancies and things that most people won't even notice. But just like with MP3s, although you may not think you notice those things, you do. Because when you listen to a record, at least when I listen to a record, there's a huge difference in sound from a crappy MP3. But you don't notice it until you have the record. And it's the same way with a good picture. The pictures look the same, but there's something, your mind is able to know when something looks better. And you can't always actually see it with your eyeballs. It's something that's an overall picture. You're like, wow, that picture has depth, you know? And I think the one cool thing about this I'm curious about is it has a 3D lens. It's one of the cameras that actually does 3D photography and video. So you buy a lens, it's a couple $100, goes on the front with 2 separate, you know, lenses, and it actually takes 3D video. And then you have to have a 3D ready TV to view it and all that, which I just thought I'll never use that crap. But the fact is, you know, technology moves fast, and within a couple of years, everybody will probably be watching 3D home movies, you know. Instead of being like, oh, I don't need that, I'm like, well, just show me the money. Let me see how it looks, you know. It's an amazing world to be able to preserve our thoughts on film. And, you know, cameras, when they were first invented, were just the most amazing things. And you can look back at those box cameras and watch how people would stand there in the place for like a full minute waiting for the exposure to take place. And how they would always have blank expressions on their faces when you look at old pictures. It's because you couldn't smile that long. It's funny. Now today we can just catch everybody in the moment. And that's one last thing I wanted to say is that when I turn it on, whoosh, click, take a picture that fast. Okay, and with my other camera, I'd push it and go, and the lens would come out, and then it would wait 2 seconds, and then the screen would come on, then you'd push it, take 5 seconds to take a picture. 5 seconds is enough to lose your picture. And I'm pretty stoked on this thing. The variety of settings I haven't even begun to touch yet. The one thing it does, it's got of course the little pop-up flash, but right under the flash is the microphones. They're on the top. This is a concern of mine that I would like to point out for anybody who thinks about getting this camera. If you're the person like me who goes out into the elements and actually takes pictures when there's weather, it might not be the best choice. Because you could drip water right into those microphones and right into the speaker. It's still just a wonderful camera, and it doesn't have it has a digital zoom, but it's not very easy to use. But it has this zoom on it, which is the 1442 lens, and all this is Greek to me. You know, I've never shot with a lens camera except for my Minoltas. So, you know, since these came out, they have, you know, all the new cameras have those on them, and the little pegs, so it actually reads, and you can see the lens in there. See, no mirror. So you have to find a lens that actually fits. I've always been a big fan of buying aftermarket stuff when it's really old because it's cheap. A lot of these new cameras are coming out with, they actually has software in there where they claim that you can't use an aftermarket battery on this because it will refuse it. You know, it's like they've encoded their batteries. And I can see why a company wants to protect their intellectual rights, but, you know, it makes it tough if you can't buy a cheaper aftermarket battery. But fortunately, the guy who traded me this, it came with 2 batteries. So, and this thing does eat up batteries after about 250 photos, unless if you're taking pictures on and off, where you have to keep turning it on and off, you know. It has a high def video on it that is just absolutely phenomenal. From what I read, it's 4 times better than high def, 4 times better resolution. But you have to have the right software to transfer it, kind of like a RAW file. I'm not sure how that works yet. But I keep my videos on a lower resolution because it already takes me an hour to upload each video. And when I've tried to use my high def setting, it'll say like 275 minutes remaining. So anyway, cameras are pretty cool, pretty damn cool. So this is a kind of a combination review of this camera. I figure while I'm talking about it, I might as well talk about this Panasonic that I'm actually filming on, the HTC SD10. You can pick one of those up for like under 200 bucks now. And when this thing came out, it was 500 bucks, I think. And it takes full high def, amazing quality video. The lowest setting it's on right now is the 1440, and it goes up to, the next setting up's a 1920 something, 1920 something beyond that, and then there's another 1920 like HX or something. And I don't really know the details of how all that works, but all I know is when it's on the highest resolution, kicks ass. The videos are phenomenal. But if you're the kind of person who wants to take videos and you're looking for just video, get just a camcorder like the Panasonic. It's phenomenal. And those you can zoom up so close on it. I think it's got like the 40 times zoom plus like 100 times like digital zoom. I can focus in pretty far away, and it has a stabilizer within it. And all of that in this little package with the perfect little SD card slot on the top. Everything's convenient to get to, and the best camcorder I've ever used in my life. I think it's just tiny. It's about 6 inches long, about 2.5 inches tall, about 1.5 inches wide. I mean, it's just nothing. So yeah, here I am rambling on about cameras, but there's got to be somebody out there who is interested, and that's why I'm doing it. Because every little review about a product helps somebody decide if they want it or not. So this is a rather long review, which didn't really review any of the features, but it was the review of the standpoint of a person who has never had one of these cameras and just got one. And I love it. So, without further ado, I'll take a picture of myself through that camera. Boy, that'll be a weird one. Peace out, everybody.